You look at the headlines. You see the shouting on the news. And you think, it's just politics. It's just a cycle. Listen to me. You're wrong. This isn't a cycle. This is a compression spring being pushed to its absolute limit. And when it snaps, the sound won't be a riot. It'll be silence. I'm not talking about some zombie apocalypse fantasy. I'm talking about a structured, industrialized society undergoing a catastrophic, non-recoverable system failure, a total grid down, supply chain zero. Everybody is on their own scenario. And you need to stop preparing for the event and start preparing for the aftermath. Because the signs, the real signals that precede the collapse, they aren't on CNN. They're structural, they're physical, and they're everywhere. The first, and in my opinion, the most terrifying sign is the decoupling of perception and reality. Think about it. We're swimming in information, yet no one agrees on basic, measurable facts. People aren't just choosing sides, they're choosing entirely different planets to live on. This isn't just political division, this is a fundamental cognitive breakdown. When a society can't agree on whether the water flowing out of the tap is clean, whether the virus is real, or whether the money in their hand actually holds value, that society has lost its operating system. It's no longer running on shared logic, but on parallel, mutually exclusive beliefs. And once you remove shared reality, you remove the trust that underpins everything. From the dollar bill in your wallet to the social contract that keeps your neighbor from taking your last can of beans. The social friction coefficient, that's what I call it, has gone from a smooth glide to a grinding halt. When people trust algorithms and influencers more than they trust their own eyes or their own local institutions. You're not looking at a stable civilization. You're looking at a population primed to dissolve into tribal, often violent, micro-factions the second the lights go out. This is the stage where the physical preparations you've made become irrelevant. Because the threat is no longer the environment. The threat is the guy standing next to you. The second critical sign, and this one is pure physics, is the dilution of the energy-to-work ratio. Everything you use, from the phone in your hand to the clean water you drink, is a result of cheap, abundant energy. Society, as we know it, is a thermodynamic process. We put in a massive amount of energy, and we get high-order complexity out. But when the energy required to extract the energy you need, what the geologists call ROEI, or energy returned on energy invested, starts to plummet, the system chokes. We're chasing lower quality, harder to get resources, and the cost of maintaining the infrastructure to process them is skyrocketing. Listen, solar and wind are great, but the entire industrial machine, the one that makes the steel and the concrete for those solar farms, is powered by the dense, cheap energy we're running out of. When the work you get back diminishes relative to the effort you put in, the entire complexity of the supply chain, the just-in-time everything, becomes too expensive to maintain. That means less food gets trucked in, less medicine is manufactured, and less heat is delivered. When this ratio collapses, society doesn't transition to a lower level, it experiences a massive, nonlinear drop in its carrying capacity. You go from a Tesla to a horse-drawn buggy in a geological nanosecond. You need to understand the material reality of energy. If you can't heat it, you can't eat it, and you can't make it. This leads us directly to the third sign, the inversion of infrastructure reliance. You rely on infrastructure that you fundamentally do not understand and cannot fix. Think about the complexity of the modern electrical grid. It's a vast, interlinked web of transformers, substations, and high-voltage lines, all managed by sophisticated SCADA systems. It is fragile by design, optimized for efficiency, not resilience. In the past, communities were physically capable of maintaining their own core systems. They knew how to purify water with simple techniques, repair a wooden wheel, or maintain a hand pump. Today, if a key transformer the size of a shipping container fails in a remote location, you can't just buy a replacement at Home Depot. The lead time is measured in months, maybe years, and the expertise required to install it is centralized and scarce. What you're seeing is not a dependency on technology, but a dependency on an irreplaceable, centralized expertise. We've inverted the reliance structure. Instead of local resilience, we have global fragility. The sign is the increasing frequency of cascading failures, not just the little power flickers, but the massive, regional outages that take days to resolve. Or the inexplicable supply chain disruptions where a single component stops an entire industry. When the small, common problems start causing large, uncommon consequences, you know the structural integrity is compromised. The fourth sign is something every historian and military strategist knows by heart: the normalization of unproductive violence. I'm not talking about crime waves. I'm talking about conflict that serves no rational purpose other than releasing social pressure. Think about the increase in petty, explosive confrontations, the road rage, the bizarre public arguments, the refusal to compromise over trivial issues. In a healthy society, violence is a tool, usually one of last resort, used to achieve a strategic goal, gain territory, protect resources, enforce contracts. When society begins to fray, violence becomes an end in itself. It becomes a form of entertainment, a release for existential angst, or a simple, tribal identification mechanism. This is the transition from rational self-interest to purely emotional, retaliatory, and unpredictable behavior. The police know this. When their job shifts from enforcing a commonly accepted legal code to mediating constant, irrational turf wars over nothing, the government's monopoly on force, the bedrock of the modern state, is dissolving. When a society becomes comfortable with the idea that the only way to solve a disagreement is through escalation, you have passed the point of no return. You are now living in a world governed by emotion, and emotion is a terrible survival guide. The final, terrifying sign is the collapse of localized redundancy, also known as the loss of the home skill set. Everyone is optimized, which means everyone is fragile. Your grandparents knew how to preserve food without a refrigerator, fix their own clothes, grow a basic garden, and provide a low level of first aid. Those skills are the foundational layers of resilience. Today, you are an expert in one tiny, hyper-specialized thing, and for everything else, you are completely dependent on the 24/7 function of the supply chain. We've outsourced the very core of survival, food, water, shelter, medicine, to a vast, distant system. The sign you should be watching for is the sheer, collective panic that ensues when something minor fails. Like a few days of empty supermarket shelves. If a 3-day supply chain glitch causes widespread panic, imagine what a 3-month failure would do. The system is no longer allowing people to fail locally and recover individually. It is forcing everyone to succeed globally. And when the center fails, everyone falls. You must reacquire the primitive skill set, not because you think you'll live in a mud hut, but because those skills represent the ability to create redundancy and self-sufficiency at the lowest, most critical level. You need to know how to filter water using a solar still, how to manage a wound without an ER, and how to start a fire in the rain. Let me give you a quick, vital insight right here. The fundamental physics of survival states that the body is a thermal engine. And the rule of threes: 3 minutes without air, 3 hours without warmth, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food, is absolutely true. Your immediate survival goal isn't finding food, it's thermal regulation and hydration. In a collapse scenario, the vast majority of initial casualties won't be from violence or starvation. They will be from exposure or dehydration, because the centralized, clean water and heating systems failed simultaneously. Focus your immediate preparation on high-quality filtration systems and insulated, layered clothing. Get your water filter working first, then worry about the rest. This isn't academic, it's a matter of immediate physical survival. So, where does that leave you? You see the 5 signs: the fractured reality, the energy cliff, the frail infrastructure, the rising irrational violence, and the loss of local skills. The time for denial is over. The system is designed to break once, completely, and permanently. Stop consuming the noise, and start creating your own resilience. Your job isn't to prevent the collapse. Your job is to survive the wake. Because when it snaps, the only thing that matters is what you can do, what you know, and who you can trust. Now is the time to acquire the skills that money can't buy. Because very soon, money won't buy anything.